A talk about real time, and probably the first thing some of you would notice, it's written Erwin. This has a reason. The reason is the slides are prepared from my brother, and he's supposed to be here, but he must work for his company, and so I have the pleasure to introduce his slides and my talk. Accidentally, I know also a lot of real time, so it shouldn't be the problem here. Okay, let's start with the obvious first question. What's real time, and what's the difference between concurrent and real-time programs? In the beginning of the software development, there were sequential programs, like everybody remembers these big, huge mainframes. They were just able to make one thing after each other. And so the execution is predetermined, and the results are independent of the execution speed. This is quite easy to catch the figure. And also, it's quite nice, you can often analytically verify of the correctness. Concurring programs, this is the typical situation of today's operating system. They execute multiple programs in pseudo-parallel. I mean, pseudo-parallel is like, it seems it's parallel, but it's not parallel. Of course, we have one CPU, so the CPU must give a time slice to this process and then give a time slice to another process. And so we have the feeling of parallelism. But as today's operating system try to be quite fair, it will happen that some program gets a specific amount of time, and afterwards the operating system looks at it and said, well, okay, there is another low priority task that hasn't got a time slice for quite a while, so why not give them the next slice? This is quite good, and in most of the situations it's comfortable. But for instance, the results of concurrent execution is dependent of the execution speed. I will come to this later, but it's not like sequential programs, and it's not like real-time programs, because in real-time programs there is a deadline, and each real-time operating system satisfies this criteria, giving a task after an event occurs within a deadline, a guaranteed reaction to this event. I mean, it doesn't sound to something special, but let's have a look at it a little bit in detail. So, as I've said before, real-time programming guarantees the reaction on an event before the deadline. Real-time isn't necessarily fast. Most of the times, real-time has the It's like real-time and embedded and fast. And no, real-time just means there is an event, and before the deadline is reached, there is a reaction. Every time. Not most of the time. Every single time. The time limit, of course, depends only on the application. For instance, the time limit for switching a railway, the embedded device for switching two railways to each other could, for this device, real-time could mean 3 seconds. Actually, it's not very fast, 3 seconds, but it means it's satisfying if the reaction occurs in between 3 seconds. In automotive industry, so with cars, modern cars have plenty of computer stuff inside. This could be 10 milliseconds or less, depending what this device is doing. So, real time means the computer reacts in time. Okay, we have different types of real time. Of course, the obvious hard real time. Hard real time will never fail. I mean, soft real time may fail and will. For a typical example of soft real time, look at your mouse cursor. If you move your mouse, you see the mouse cursor moving also, and most of the times it behaves like this. Sometimes it flickers and the computer does something more important in his opinion, and yes, then it fails. But I mean, in case of a mouse cursor, it's not that catastrophic, but for hard real time, imagine a meteor, a comet, and you have a device where you want to take photographs when a meteor or a comet is touching the Earth's surface. So you have a trigger, and this is just a box which says, okay, wow, here it is. And then you have the photograph unit, which gets this event. And this is where hard real time comes in. If the photograph box doesn't react within the deadline, you will miss the shot. I mean, there are other examples of real time, like moving a car. But in case the difference between hard real time and soft real time is hard real time will not fail. Soft real time may fail and will. Okay, for soft real time, as I've already mentioned before, you can use your operating system. Mouse task is a typical soft real time task. Well, for hard real time, you need something more specific. You need a real time kernel. Most of the times, real time kernels are associated with embedded systems, but embedded isn't real time, but most of the times embedded devices. For instance, your DVD player at home has a real-time operating system. Your digital television receiver, if you have one at home, it's a real-time system. And so embedded is a special purpose computer system which is completely encapsulated by the device it controls. nothing really beside this is special on an embedded system. It's just fit into the special purpose. It doesn't mean that it's fast, or it's just as fast as it has to be. So real time, that's the good news, can be achieved on every computer system with the appropriate means, like what is your deadline, and so let's see how we can achieve this deadline. Okay, to begin, to become a little bit more detailed, as a forecast, we will have a look at the Linux RTE kernel extension, that is a Linux real-time kernel on top of Linux, of course. And so the problem is that Linux is a typical concurrent system. You have no deadline guarantees. You have especially people who use the Linux for audio performances would notice you have strong variant of execution time. This is especially if you do something with audio quite bad. And so how do we real timing of Linux? Okay. You have the tasks which are going to get executed. The scheduler is that part of the operating system which is supposed to do that. ISR is the interrupt service dispatcher and the interrupt controller, of course. So, how we put real time on top of it? Basically, we take the interrupts, the events, which get fed from hardware, and replace our interrupt scheduler with our real-time scheduler. There we have our real-time task, which are completely independent from the normal tasks. And of course, Linux is running as one low priority task in the real-time system. Okay, how can we do this? To know how we can implement a real-time program or hack our digital television receiver, we must know some few things about what is a task. I mean, a task in this context. A task is an independent thread of execution. It may contain functions or uses functions, but a task is not a function. It may be synchronized, and of course it will most of the times communicate with other tasks. And in case of real-time, it may be non-preemptible, preemptible, or time-sliced. It may be non-preemptible means nobody, also the operating system, is allowed to interrupt this task until it's finished, or it gives away the time slice by itself. Preemptible is the opposite, means okay, you can interrupt me. And time sliced, we will come to this later, is a